Welcome to the American Med Spa Association podcast, Medical Spa Insider. This week, AmSpa founder Alex Thiersch is speaking with Janie Futch, BSN, RN, co-owner and chief marketing officer at Altera Aesthetix, and Martina Kolovich, MSN and PC, co-owner and chief financial officer of Altera Aesthetix.
Okay, everybody, this is Alex Thiersch. Welcome to Medical Spa Insider. We have today on the AmSpa hotline the lovely and talented ladies from what is formerly known as Refined Aesthetics, now is Altera Aesthetics out of Georgia. And you've got, I want to say 2 or 3 locations in Georgia. There's the one I think where you all are is in Savannah, I want to say. I'm not, but it is a great honor and pleasure to have you both on. Martina Kolovich and Janie Futch, you are both the co-founders of Altera, and it's great to have you both on the program. How are you doing?
We're good. We're happy to be here.
All right, good. Well,
yes, 3 locations. Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So I didn't want to mess that up. So, first of all, we were just talking before, you jumped on, before we hit record, that you've recently changed your name because you were under Refined Aesthetics. That's what I had you under. That is no longer the case. You are now Altera Aesthetics. Before we get into that a little bit, just talk a little bit, give me a little bit of background on what your med spa is, what types of services you offer, who your clientele is, kind of what you're trying to achieve with your primary locations, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so we started actually in 2019, and we had what we called a little small concierge business. I feel like a lot of providers like us nowadays start out. And it just quickly grew into brick and mortar. People wanted somewhere to go. And so our first original location was in Savannah, and we ballooned into surrounding areas. So our 2 other offices are within about a 30-minute to an hour drive from our original Savannah office. And we function out of these 3 now, and we call it our big conglomerate. I mean, we're actually still very hands-on and involved in all 3 locations. And we function as the business owners, doing a lot of those things, and still providers. So we still do all the things and have our hands in all of it, even to this day.
So we do Botox, filler, microneedling, RF microneedling, facials, hydrofacial, stuff like that. A little bit of laser, but we stay pretty much neck up for the most part. We don't do body contouring or anything like that.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's interesting, in that you have really focused. Well, and first of all, so the neck up, that's for all 3 locations?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, why did you decide to go that route with your med spa? And there's a lot of people who say different things. Whenever I'm talking to folks, I'm always like, there's more than one way to do this. A lot of people start off by doing, kind of 1 room, 1 chair, only injectables, and then they end up morphing into having everything under the sun. You've been in business since 2019, which is not a small amount of time. And you've stuck to kind of neck up, mostly injectables. What was the basis for that? Why did you go that route?
Well, I mean, I think the body things that we do are like basically laser hair removal and like veins. Pretty much that's it. And really and truthfully, we wanted to be the provider for facial injectables in the area. So I feel like when you go to the other places, they're dabbling in all of these little things. But every single day, our bread and butter is going to be doing your tox and your filler in your face. So it's not necessarily like we're spending half our day, injecting your butt or other things. So we just feel like we're very niche, and we do this every single day. So you're going to get a good treatment every time you come in.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any temptation to expand and to go into bigger energy devices, body sculpting, things like that?
Oh, not to go down the dirty rabbit hole of devices, but we firmly like to help people understand that injectables really help you get off the ground running, and then those devices are things that you can add on later. I feel like something we've noticed, and this is again for our market in our area, something we've noticed some people do that maybe wasn't a good move is just diving too deep into the world of devices, because it's so much upfront overhead cost, right? And so I just feel like most of what you can do with your patients to provide really good results, especially when it comes to the face, is in injectables over devices. And we do have devices and they complement everything we do for injectables and skincare, obviously. But they have they're really expensive, right? I mean, let's just call it like it is. They're really expensive. So it takes you time to get your money back on those and have a return. And yes, we are medical providers, but we have ran our business numbers from day one and have developed some business acumen. So we like to look at all of that too. So I think that we're not against devices,
No.
but
and the reps will come and they will tell you anything that you want to hear. And as soon as you sign that dotted line, you will never see them again. So I guess for us, those situations have just put us off a little bit. Like the only thing that we don't have that I would like kind of want to get, but I don't want to deal with the insurance is a CO2 laser. That's the only thing that we don't have that I think that I would like, but we just refer that out. So
plus our patients really hate downtime.
They do. Our patients do not like downtime. They want to come in and go back to work. That's like sort of our MO patient is that they're coming in on their lunch break, or after work before they get kids, before work, and they're just trying to get back to life.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. So let's kind of back up a little bit. Janie, you are an RN. Martina, you are a nurse practitioner. How did you guys get started? Are you both from, I mean, did you start out in aesthetics? Almost nobody did. So everyone kind of came from somewhere else. How did you get the idea to come into aesthetics? How did you get the idea to start your business? What was that whole process like? Because I know right now there's some folks that are listening who want to do exactly what you did, but they're nervous. They feel like they don't have the training or the time or the money, whatever it is. Let's get into that a little bit.
So in early 2019, I mean, I guess I was a nurse practitioner in dermatology. So that's where I started. And my dermatologist was really into Mohs surgery. So mostly we did, skin checks and all of that kind of stuff. And then on the side, we did just tox. And the only tox we had was Botox. And then we did microneedling. And he didn't do fillers, none of that stuff. And I begged him to let me expand that I was there for almost 4 years. And I was like, please, please. And he just wasn't into it. And I was charting a lot. And I had 2 small children, 14 months apart. And so I came home one day and I just told my husband, who's our medical director, and he's a surgeon, I just said, I just don't want to do this anymore. I just want to work part-time out of the house and do this. So in January of 2019, I started looking into it, and it legitimately took us till October till I felt like we were compliant enough working under my husband's license, who didn't want me to do that right off the rip. So I was asking other people, but then I ended up using him. And then Janie was an OR nurse with my husband.
Yeah.
And so he sort of paired us up together.
He had a good 2-year interview experience working alongside me. And I've just done a variety of really inpatient nursing settings, mostly in the surgical setting, pre-op, PACU, and in the OR as well. And so that is how we met. And really, I don't know. I was halfway through graduate school, didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do once I was done. And it was just like, hey, you want to do this thing? And it was like, yeah, that sounds fun. And
we didn't know what we were getting into.
Yeah,
we had no idea what the world was. It just seemed fun. I hadn't really followed anybody. I just wanted to do it, and I really didn't realize how kind of cutthroat and difficult it was.
Wait,
but neither one of us understood the assignment. Yeah.
I thought you said you were going to just sit on your couch part-time and be at home.
That is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be with my kids and work part-time, and I work way more now than I did before, but it's a little different when it's your own. So it's okay.
That's true.
But I think that's been a huge part of our mission as we have developed and grown and built our other offices and hired, tons of other providers and things, is what we were looking for. Which I don't think we knew what we were looking for. We were just aesthetics. That sounds fun. But what we were looking for is a way to use our skill set and knowledge and all of the professionalism that we had developed over the years, but still see our family some, right? And so we didn't want to have to choose between the two. We wanted to still be professional working women, but not have to, sacrifice the family time or then sacrifice your career for 10 years for the family time. We wanted to have our cake and eat it too. And this route popped up and we have just made it work. And that's really been something we've carried through with the providers that work for us. Most of them are really full-time. They really only work 30 to 32 hours a week.
Yeah.
And it's because they all have children. I mean, one of our offices had
they had 6 kids in 1
6
year,
babies
6
last
babies
year.
in 1 year in the office.
Wow.
And so we don't make anyone feel bad. We let you take the time off that you want. We really try to be, family forward. I mean, I have 4 kids, Janie has 2 kids. So we really try to let the women work as much as they want to. And so I think it just makes for a very happy working environment for our
That's awesome.
employees.
That's awesome. Now, so when you opened, did you have an actual location you built out, or were you doing it like
That
out
was
of
in my
literally
living room.
Our
Was
living
it?
room, one chair, right?
One chair
Nice.
in my living room.
Yep.
And then we realized that we both couldn't work out of one chair. So we were like, I guess we probably need a bigger space. And we
Yeah.
had to actually convince my husband that that was his idea for us to be able to buy a space. So
Oh, you just put that out there.
I did. He's gonna figure
Yeah.
out this.
Well, he doesn't care
And
now because
then,
you got 3 locations, so it's like whatever.
yeah, and then we got a really small space, and now we rent that space out, and then we have the place that is in Savannah. So we outgrew that pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so our growth track has been great. Really, it's kind of been this natural growth evolution. Like I said, to our 2 additional offices, it feels natural now. It obviously was hard during the process. There's all those obstacles along the way, but for us, I think there's tons of other people that want to go to what's now Altera, and other places, or they're like, I really want to do what you do, and how do
Mhm.
I do this? And they have all these questions, and they want the blueprint. And we would love to open more, but I feel like we only have so much bandwidth, and so we did a lot of research,
Soul
soul
searching.
searching to figure out how we wanted to continue to grow and expand. And we ended up on the route of we are now franchising because we really do. We just want to hand other women like us the blueprint to be
Mhm.
able to do it.
That's
We
awesome.
want them to be able to have everything that we have, so that way they can make it their own and do their own thing with it and have their
Yeah.
own office and feel accomplished and do whatever they want to do and be a
So
mom.
I definitely have some questions about the franchising thing because that's a huge undertaking. Like I've seen people do it, but before I do that, were either one of you kind of like were you naturally entrepreneurial? You're like were you wanting to open businesses and start a business, or did it really just kind of fall in your lap like this?
I know I don't. I'm a real good soldier. So I say that all the time. I think I'm a good business person, but I'm a real good soldier too.
I mean, I'm probably a little bit more of that spirit.
Mhm.
Yes. I mean, some of my family members and my husband have always been very entrepreneurial, and I was always doing side gigs of things that were entrepreneurial. Like I thought this would be, a side gig for a little while, and that's how most people start. It's a side gig, right? But I mean, I will tell people it's hard to get really good at your craft in this craft doing it part-time, right? So
Yeah.
I completely understand starting it as a side gig, but figure out your way to dive into it full-time. I mean, I was halfway through grad school to say, let's do it part-time. And then when we're busy, I'll fit it. Yeah, I did it because we took it on full-time, right? And so, but there was no way to step back from that craft once you're doing it full-time because that's how you get good and stay good at it.
Yeah, yeah. And Janie, did you know anything about aesthetics ahead of time? And had you done any injections or gotten injections or like or was this just like literally I like the way the word aesthetic sounds, so I'm gonna do it? Like how'd that come
No,
about?
actually, I think Martina and I are not your stereotypical girly girls either that I think work in aesthetics a lot of times either. So that was odd and different, but I knew that in my career I like doing things that were original, right? I like to be able to do something, see an outcome. A lot of areas of nursing, you're kind of doing tasks, but you don't really get to see the results of what you do.
Mhm.
And so I just knew that I would want to work in some kind of space that was interventional, and really aesthetics is very much that. So fit the bill.
That's awesome. And then okay, so you started you started in Savannah. What's the I mean, I've been to Savannah a couple times. It's an amazing city. What's the aesthetic market like in Savannah? Is it bustling? I imagine it is.
It's growing really fast. I mean, when we first started, there was basically one other med spa, and it's the one that's been there the longest.
Mhm.
And it's been there about 15 years. And then one opened at the same time as us out in Cooler, which is like 45 minutes from Savannah. It's like a little alcove of Savannah. And that was pretty much it when we started. And now they're everywhere. I mean,
Mhm.
there's tons of them. Obviously, they're popping up everywhere, so
Yeah.
that's what's happening. So yes, it's growing right now pretty rapidly. But if you go right outside of Savannah, not so much. You're talking
Yeah.
small town America.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Savannah is still very much
Small.
not a primary market at all. I would still totally put that at a tertiary market kind of category. I mean, yes, there are people here getting these services, but it's not an easy market to be in. I would say that. But I do feel like the way we approach aesthetics is in this natural looking aesthetic pathway where patients are really drawn to it, not only because of how you look, but also just because the patients that are getting these services now are not the Hollywood housewife and the stay-at-home mom whose husband makes millions and billions, right? It is the nurse, it is the school teacher, it is the stay-at-home mom whose husband doesn't make millions and billions, and they want to do these things to help themselves feel better. I mean, we always think about aesthetics being about vanity, but if you're giving a presentation, you have a good hair day, you know that you carry yourself and you act and function differently. So having these moms that they just had 2 kids, they haven't done anything for themselves, and they get that first Botox appointment, right? And then they are just feeling like $1 million in a couple weeks, and
they come
knowing
back at that 2-week appointment because they're just feel like they don't look so tired anymore, right? They don't look tired. They don't it just gives them that boost.
And they're usually simple, small, little tweaks, right? We don't believe in you have to do your whole entire face every single time you come for talks because that's just not feasible for everybody in every market. And I think if we want to continue to expand into these other markets where aesthetics hasn't been, then I think we have to continue with that approach.
Yes, I'm sorry, but you guys probably didn't hear this. We just had a emergency power outage in Savannah, and the ladies were kicked off the podcast for a few minutes. So now we're back. Everything okay there? Is this like the pre-hurricane? Isn't there a hurricane coming your way at some point too?
Well, it's no, not right now.
But
But
we're
this
in
is
hurricane
hurricane season,
season.
and we are right in all of the hurricane patterns.
Yeah.
And you
usually,
can, that's the thunder if you can hear it. I mean,
pretty
it's
bad.
I couldn't, but I believe you. It sounded very, very
yeah.
loud. So we were talking about just kind of getting off the ground, who your patients were, and how you were relating to them. One question I had when you were talking was when you first started. I mean, it sounds like, neither one of you was really too involved in aesthetics yet, meaning you didn't have a whole list of clients. How did you start getting people to come in the door? Because that's the biggest thing that people, they worry about. And you both have kids, you've got, things going on, you decide to quit your jobs and do this full time. That's not a small commitment. How did you get it off the ground?
So I did talks, in my old job, and I mostly did it outside of the office because my office was very much like a derm.
Yeah.
It felt like derm. It doesn't feel fun to come and get your talks there, right?
Yep.
So what I would do is I would bring everything from the office home, and I did in-home parties for people. So I pretty much was doing that. And I tried to wait until I had a certain amount of patients to where we thought we could kind of take off.
Gotcha.
But from there, I don't know. We basically asked friends and family.
It's your friends and
Word
family
of
are the first patients that you always have, and you might be discounting your services because you're not as experienced, and rightfully so. I think when we talk about the taboo subject of discounting aesthetic services, which we have feelings about, we do. But when it's early days and you're trying to get off the ground running, I think it can be a great thing because they're taking a risk. So honestly, by giving them a little price discount to have you poke them in the face when you're not that experienced is a good thing, right? And then, you get before and afters, and social media is a wonderful thing, right? So Facebook and Instagram really helped to get the word out to those other people in our community that we didn't personally know to know about us. And I think from there, it just slowly takes off.
And in the beginning, even though I had been doing talks, the way that I always laugh, the way that I was taught to do talks was the very first Friday that I worked at my derm office. One of the PAs was like, "It's time for me to get Botox. Come here, you're going to give it to me." I literally didn't know anything about anything. She drew muscles on her face. She's like, "Okay, you're going to put this here, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this." That was literally my training. That was it. I learned nothing else. They didn't teach me anything else. Anything else I found was on YouTube. It was terrible. So when we decided we were going to open, we did the 8-hour class, which you realize you don't learn
anything in
anything
that either.
at all. And so we went from that and we spent about like 30,
Probably 30, 40,000 a piece our first
the first
year learning.
And so we had like trainers come to us and we did services to patients, for free. We got the, usually the stuff from like the rep or lack thereof at the time because we were small.
They were small.
But yes, we did a lot of trainings and we spent like we were spending a lot of money and not really paying ourselves in the beginning because we were spending all of that money on training. Just to make sure that we were safe and we felt comfortable. And to be honest, the first probably year, the majority of filler we did together. So we were in the room with the patient together. If it was on Janie's schedule, I was in there with her, sort of as her assistant, or if it was on my schedule, she was in my room.
Because again, we didn't grow up working in this aesthetic world where we had those contacts and resources. And we did have contacts that were plastic surgeons that we always knew that we could call on for things and this and that. But to talk to on a daily basis, we didn't really have that. So we did a lot of things together. And then now it's great because we feel like every time we bring on a provider, they have this really tight little network of us as all providers that they do get to talk to on a daily basis if needed.
And we have like a group chat where if anything's going wrong with a patient, you can like jump on there and we can see it. And we're expanding that to the franchise as well. So once they come and get trained, there's going to be like a group chat with everybody on there so that you don't ever feel like you're by yourself.
In these training portals, just the thing that we wish we had early on.
Yeah,
that,
for sure.
You're
awesome.
on island.
Yeah.
So like for someone, driving along, wanting to do this, how long did it take for you guys? Well, first of all, starting in 2019, then you hit COVID. So you had, post COVID though, was crazy for a lot of people. Did you feel a bump from the post-COVID kind of rush as well?
We did, for sure.
We were lucky. We're very honest that we know we're lucky. We were only closed for 6 weeks here. So Savannah was pretty fast to be reopened. We weren't California or anything like that. So we were lucky just having to wear masks and do all the stuff for COVID. But we did, obviously, yes, that was a huge thing. When we're on Zoom right now, we realize we really like our Google Meets. We look much prettier on our Google Meets than we do on Zoom. And so I can totally see why if people were doing this all the time, why they came in. Yeah. So yes, we were definitely part of the Zoom boom.
The Zoom boom.
So yes.
And you think Google Meets you look prettier than you do on Zoom?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't know what it is, but it looks better.
Really? Huh. I was always trying to choose between Zoom and like Microsoft Teams, which I hated because I look crappy. But now I'm with you guys. All right, that's fine.
We haven't tried Teams, but
don't. It's fine. It's fine. So and this is totally up to you if you want to share or not, but I'm curious, what was all in, how much did you have to put into training to really get yourself to a point where you felt, I'm not even sure that nobody ever feels completely comfortable, but it's to get to that point where you're like, okay, now I feel like I can see a new patient. I can do this on my own. I've got the tools. I've got the skills. I know what to do. I know what to do if there's any kind of an adverse event. How long did that take? And what's the investment like for someone who wants to just kind of get started?
I'd love to say there's a set number of trainings or the amount of money in training. Again, we really did probably spend $30,000, $40,000 our first year doing that. But I think what it is it's volume. It's a number of faces. And you have to inject them and they have to come back at 2 weeks and then you see their results. And it's those kinds of things to see what you're doing, because you may have learned it from somebody, but then that's not what your patient wants or what your aesthetic's trying to be. So you have to figure out how to take all of these training methods you're learning and make it into yours and see how your patients are going to. So it's volume. It's just that time. And I wouldn't say that it's that long. And somebody's going to come to us. They took a risk. They got their talks done. They go see a friend. If you're lucky, you might tell a sister or friend. You don't really tell the world, but you might tell a sister or a friend. And then so all of a sudden their friend comes to see us when they've never. It's really a lot of word of mouth and social media, which is the new word of mouth, right? Social media has been great because you can educate those patients. Really, it's all about educating and making awareness of these things. Like I said, the nurse or the school teacher who didn't really know that she could come in and just address her 11 lines. She always thought it was this big ordeal and I had to do all these things, these 11 lines just really bother me so bad. And so for them
Mhm.
to find out they can come in and just treat that area, they can afford it because it's just that area. And that's what really bothers them. So that's what's really going to affect their confidence in life. That's a game changer. And I
Mhm.
mean, for you as business owners who are like, that's a bad business move, trust me, she's going to find something else she don't like in 6 months. And then she's going to come back and have you treat the next thing, right? So the long play in that is really, really a win.
And again, we're big on the long play. Like we follow the people that come to see us for talks, and our retention rate is very high, I feel like, versus like the majority of people. Why? Because we don't treat things that people don't ask for. We just don't. We don't walk in and I don't say like, oh, well, you can really use something down here, right? Just because from then on, they're going to feel insecure. They're already insecure coming to sit in your chair and tell you what they're insecure about, right? So they have all of these things. So then if you talk about those, they just make them feel worse about themselves. What'll happen is you'll get rid of their crow's feet that they came to ask for. And then wait a minute, now I see this here or something like that. And they aren't afraid to ask you about that.
Because you did a good job and fixed it the first time. So they are very happy to tell you about that next thing that they see, right? So we have this long-term relationship with the patients versus just making a really big sale the first time they come in, but then we don't see them again,
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think
So-
that's a huge thing.
Yeah, for sure. No, and there's different approaches, right? I mean, because I talk to some people who say, no, you want to come in and you want to give them a full assessment and here's what you need. And that's how you kind of get it all done and together. But I mean, there's, your patient population better than anybody, and you know what they're going to respond to. You know your own personalities better than anybody and what people are going to respond to. So I think that's great. I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, it's very market dependent, but for most people here, that would overwhelm them, scare them away.
Yeah.
So you're still going to find patients like that here. So you really do have to kind of read the room, right? You got to read your patient, you got to know all those things. But I think in our market in general, we do much better with these slower growing long-term relationships with patients.
So I want to talk about franchising and how you decided to go that route. But before we do, I know you had to do this rebrand. It sounds like there's a story behind it because you guys kind of giggle every time you talk about it. What happened? Why did you change your name with the rebrand? What was the impetus behind that?
So I think rebrands are just awful. Like I don't think anybody would ever want to rebrand. Our name was refined from the get-go because we were just, seeing people in a chair in Martina's house. Again, we didn't understand the assignment. And so then, all these things happened over time. And really the name was too generic. It was a little bit confusing to some of the other med spas that were in the area. Everybody's name starts with an R, right? There's like Refresh, Rejuvenate, Renew, Radiant, all of these things. And actually, it would cause a little bit of patient confusion between the locations. And then as we dived into the franchise avenue, we, of course, go down the avenue of trademarking and things like that. And while we could have taken the gamble and gone with this and just said, we'll figure it out down the road and we'll go through lawsuits if they happen and all this with our very generic one-word name, we had wind of some litigious activities over this name in other states. And we were just like, the long play to make it easier in the long run is to go ahead and rebrand and change our name now. And basically, in order to find a new name, you have to make up a word. And it's fun. We're like, oh, we're going to find another cool name. And you just can't.
You can't. Somebody else is using it. I promise you. Somebody else. And it wouldn't matter if we were just staying here in Savannah or in like the low country area. I don't think it would matter. But since we were trying to franchise and let whoever, we needed it to be okay in every state.
Solid trademark.
A solid trademark. So we came up with a name and a lot of chat GPT and all this, things,
So wait, so what does Altera doesn't mean anything? It's literally just a word you made up, or does it mean something?
So the root of it is alter, which really is just to make a very small change that usually has a big impact, right? So, but yes, I mean, it does. We do feel that way. Our word refine, we really felt like we were making these small refinements in patients that were making like a big outcome for their life. And so we did want to, have something in our new brand that went along with that. And it's just what we came up with.
And we're nerds. Aesthetics has an X because that's a change in a variable.
And we have like a triangle in our logo, like Delta X change in a all the things.
We're nerds. Like really, I mean, if we could have somehow put like a Botox symbol somewhere Like, probably
It's like the
Yeah, I mean, you could have
like a
called it.
chemical molecule of Botox, we probably would have tried to play with that, but it just became confusing.
Well, I was thinking you could call it like Martina's living room. Be perfect.
Well,
nobody had that name probably.
no, probably not. But I will tell you, the people, they call themselves the living room patients or the couch patients. Like
Our OGs.
Our OG patients. They'll be like, I was in Martina's living room. Like that's how they designate themselves when they kind of call and don't get what they want. They're like, wait, I was one of the like Martina like people back in the day, and they usually get
That
what
was
they
one of the
want.
OGs.
So yeah,
Love it.
but
I love it. So, I do want to talk about the decision, because this is just, I'm curious more than anything. And I think there's so many different ways to do it. First of all, the fact that you all want to franchise shows me that you want, obviously you explained a little bit how you want to be able to give the blueprint to people so they can do it themselves. But you also want to expand. You've got kind of a big idea for what Altera can be now. Did you always want to be kind of a big franchise, or was this something that you decided recently? And how did you come to the decision to do franchising versus just expansion, partnering, whatever that, what other kind of thing you can do?
we never wanted a franchise. That word kind of like
Yeah, the
gives
word
us the ick.
franchise gave us the ick. I was like, a franchise. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we just didn't think that we could manage other offices the way that they needed to be managed if it was just the two of us. Like, we wouldn't be fair to the people that worked there.
Or even if we did partner up with people, we wanted to be able to have say and regulation on what was done, right? So there's this giant outpouring of non-compliance, I feel like, in the medical aesthetics industry. And it's like, in order for us to, dictate, we don't want to be dictators. That's not the case at all. But in order for us to ensure that things are done correctly, that then they can do the rest of the whatever they want to do with it. We kind of had to go a route like franchising, where it's like, okay, you have this franchise agreement, and if you don't hold up your end of the bargain in any one of these areas, then we can pull your license. So if they aren't being compliant, if they are doing things outside of what we deem safe, areas that should be injected or should not,
like no noses, like we are not doing filler in noses. Like that's like one of them. I didn't want someone in one of our offices to do that, right? Why? Because I just feel like it's dangerous. Like, and it just
we're
doesn't
not
need to
working
happen.
alongside plastic surgeons and things like that. We are functioning as a medical. We're spa. We don't love the word med spa, but you don't fit in any other category. We are functioning as a medical aesthetics practice, not with a plastic surgeon, right? And so we want people being really safe. We want them to do these niche down things that we've done, and it's been great. But we don't want them just going rogue and doing whatever they want to do, right? With the brand and the name and really the safety of the patients.
Yeah.
So going the franchise route allowed us to have enough say and regulation on how that could be carried out.
And we could make sure we could deem that their medical or their medical director, is in good standing and, all of those kinds of things, and make sure they're not doing anything shady, making sure that we don't have, estheticians injecting, which I know in Texas, you have your own rules and all the things, but like here in Georgia, that's not how things go. So just making sure all these things are compliant, basically.
But, I guess one of the things what was wondering is, so all of that I get, but it's incumbent upon you wanting to expand. Like you could always do one location and then just grow your location, get a bigger space, more rooms, right? But that's always one way to do it. You can also do 2 locations, 3 locations, which you have right now. That is hard enough as it is, but it allows you to scale, make a little more money, expand your patient base. Franchising is kind of a national, like this is where you're going. It's a big brand. That's to me, that not only means, okay, I get that you want to not control, but have input and make sure that people are compliant, but you also have some kind of desire to be bigger than just 3 locations.
Yes. And I think, we opened an office a year for a while, and then we're like, okay, what are we doing now? Like, okay, what are we going to open? What's going to go on? And yes, we feel like we want to do that. But I think the biggest thing for us is that key piece with allowing other women to do it. The amount of phone calls or emails or DMs. How did you do this? How can I do this? I want to be able to do this. And we could have opened a bigger space in Savannah, but again, we're a tertiary market. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
there's no other space for that. Like, so it's not like opening a bigger space in California or even Atlanta for that matter. So, I mean, we really couldn't do that. And then I think for us, we just wanted, yes, we wanted to give back, probably like give back to what we got, right? Like when we just started, we were two girls in a living room. We say that all the time. We didn't know. So we want to be able to give the people that want to be doing it, able to be business owners.
right. And I think in the meds, I mean, you're going to find tons of people who are medical providers and they want to do this thing, but they usually lack that sense of business acumen. And then
right.
so like, even if I can like set up the compliance blueprint for you, it's like, well, there's this whole other element of the business blueprint and all of these different really blueprints within the big blueprint of opening a medical spa. And so,
well, and the buying power. So then the thing is too,
Yeah.
then you're this brand new office and we know this, we ordered Botox 1 vial at a time. We would like, look, okay, we have this many patients. How many vials do we have to buy? You know, the companies were never willing to help us, right? When you're like the little guy, they don't ever want to help you, which I get, and at this point we've gotten to the size where yes, if we ask for something, they usually say yes, or they have like some way to help us out. And I want those other offices to have the things that we are able to have now. Like, can you get a vial of, Dysport for this price? Because they can't, not for a long, long time. So maybe never if you're not buying in volume, right? So we're able to give them that like higher tiered amount so that they can make more money. And we're giving the savings back to the areas. We're not like skimming off the top of that for the new offices. We really want all of that to go into the new business so that they do well.
Yeah, we want them to be successful. And
Right.
we just have those things that we didn't have when we started our business. We didn't have that network of providers. We didn't have the better margins and the better pricing, right? So now that we're at this level, if we do it the franchise route, we can give them those things while also still, like you said, the control element, which is not control, but again, guidelines, all of that kind of stuff and regulation. I don't know, it's the best way that we can think of that we can also still handle it, right? Because when when we get on a new franchisee, they own their business. We're not partially owning it with them and having to show up and be there for, during the weekday. Obviously, the resources of our company are going to be there for them, but us individually aren't going to have to be there as owners, and they own that business. And I don't know, I love being an American and being able to be an American, own my business. And I think that's one of the things that are great. And I want more, especially women, to be able to own their business.
Yeah.
And they will be as a franchisee. And like we said, within regulations and guidelines, get to do what they want and work as many hours as they want.
And if they're going to pop up, at least have them be safe, right? I think that's my biggest key point is that like, if you're going to open more, and we know they're all going to open, and they're all going to do these things. I think for the nurses in the Georgia near us that are opening brick and mortars and don't have a medical director with them all the time, and they have no nurse practitioner there, like they're not having this good faith exam. I just think, I just want them all to be doing it right and like all in the same playing field, right? So these people are now in the same playing field. And I know that more of these are going to open in different parts, and I can feel like confident that the patients that are going to be seen there are safe. So I think that's like another key piece, because Janie knows I'm like the compliance queen. I'm the one that like loves all that stuff.
Plus, yeah, this is true. But plus, let's just say there's, a woman somewhere who's really wanting to do this. Sure. Could she get a business loan to start herself up? Yes. Again, are her profit margins going to be as great? No, her things are expensive that she has to buy. But also that bank might look at her like, see, you want to just randomly start open this med spa? Great. Okay. But if you're doing it under our franchise umbrella, you have this proven business model where we've shown you all of the, the tracks you have to go. And so it's much easier for them to get the money to even start up their own thing.
And we have now like SBA loans, like through our company. So you can get an SBA loan that way.
Cool. So. How long did it take you to put all the franchise documents together? Because to me, that's the biggest part. Because as a lawyer, like I hear people say, I got to do the franchise documents, and I'm just my head starts to spin because that's a huge piece of it.
So it took us. We started last August. Is that right? We started last August.
That's a year, yeah.
And we worked on it a lot. Like that's what mostly our
May franchise disclosure document was complete, and we had our first discovery day. So August to May.
Yeah,
that's awesome. What and how's the process been? Have you had some interest? Are you getting some nibbles?
We had our first
Yes.
discovery day. We had 3 people. Granted, like we're not super big, so we can't accommodate a lot of people. So it's going to have to be smaller ones. And we're obviously going back and forth with those people right now
Just
with
negotiations.
negotiations. And then we have another one
This
this
Thursday.
Thursday and then one next month.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot on the docket.
That's exciting.
But we're trying to be strategic and not overwhelm ourselves and them. So
We
making
don't
sure
want to grow too quickly in this process because we want to be sure that, the
They're
first
doing
several
well.
are successful and we have the resources to get them off the ground running well.
For sure. What I mean, we're going to bump up against time here in a second, but I'm curious, looking back at yourselves in 2019, like what would you tell yourself if you could talk to yourself back then? Your current self could talk to yourself in 2019. What would you say?
don't stress as much, but
But the stress is kind of what gets you to where you are, right?
Oh yeah, it does. And I mean, yes. And for a while, it was funny when we first started hiring our first few employees. It was this. We were still responsible for bringing in the income. We were still the providers, yet we have these people we're paying and training. So then we're responsible for their family's food. And then it was all this like, whoa, we just took on a whole lot more than we really thought we were taking on. And so then, yes, now our business is hinging on or the livelihoods of 30 of our employees' families is hinging on our business being successful now, right? So we do still put a little bit of stress and pressure on ourselves, but we really built up a strong, big team of people that are now carrying this along. I mean, really just
don't be afraid to hire too. We were like really afraid to hire people in the beginning, and that was not great. And always hire people that are smarter than you and whatever they're doing. That's the other key piece, is that you need someone that knows what they're doing. I mean, I was doing all of our QuickBooks and all of that stuff, and I am by no means an accountant. But I was making it work, but spending most Mondays, like an 8-hour day working on that. Whereas like the person we have now does that in like an hour. So it's like,
that's how it works.
Yeah. But I would just tell people not to to keep chugging along, but not to have these big expectations, because this industry is pivoting and changing so much so quickly that I wouldn't have ever pegged what we're doing right now. So it's like, don't put these expectations. Don't say, well, I need to have 3 locations too, and I need to be doing this.
No.
Right away, like take it in as it comes and figure out make these smart, small, strategic decisions along the way. Again, don't buy a $200,000 device your first month of business, right? Do those injectables where you get your return really quickly and grow that client base, grow those patients, and ask them, well, if I had to get a device, what device would I want, right? I think I would just say to enjoy the ride more and just just go with however it flows. I mean, we've been successful along the way, but we would have never predicted we didn't say this was our 5-year goal and here we are now, right? Like we're just out there chasing the cheese. I don't really care what the cheese is or how it comes and goes, because again, this industry is just who knows what's coming next.
And be self-deprecating on social media. It's really helpful.
Yeah, our patients love when we're like vulnerable and relatable, and they're like, yes, I do not feel scared to come see you now because you are a little crazy.
That's a good point. That's a good point. It's a good point. So, I mean, do you have a target for how many locations you want or how many franchisees you want to get in the next year, 2 years, 3 years?
Absolutely not.
Riding the wave.
Just figuring it out as it comes. That's what we said from the very beginning. Like when we hired our first person, like, so we like don't know exactly how we're doing this, but we're gonna figure it out. Right. So
figuring it out as we go.
And that's the reality, how most people do it, right? People just seem like they know more than they do, but that's what we did for the longest time too. Shit, I'm still doing that. I feel like
you'd be shocked. Like we go to these big meetings, like ones with like small like business owners, and you think that you're doing it all wrong, and then you realize, oh wait, like we're like way ahead of where a lot of these people are. So it's shocking.
Well, and I feel like the franchise model for a group like you, I think that's going to appeal to certain people because they're going to be solo providers like you, and they want to kind of follow that blueprint. So I think I think that's awesome. Before I let you guys go, I do have to talk briefly, and maybe we'll throw this on we'll have to come back and do a different podcast on this too, is you are some of the inaugural members of the Georgia chapter of the American Med Spa Association, which I'm very, very thankful about. But you're repping the state. How I'm just curious, like what's your what's your reasoning for doing that? You've talked about compliance, regulations, getting everyone safe. I mean, that's what we're preaching. There's so much. I don't know if you guys have seen, but even in the last couple of days, there's been several stories that have come out on various platforms that have been kind of ragging on med spas. What's the goal there, and what are you hoping to achieve?
I just want I want all these people that are working not necessarily in a med spa to know that you guys are there and part
Yeah.
of something they can get resources from. I think
Mhm.
that's huge. I mean, you guys update your site on what's legal all the time. So I'm usually checking it like once a month for the state of Georgia just to make sure that we're always on top of things. Two, I mean, I'm a huge dork. I was the president of the Georgia Association of Nursing Students when I was in school. Like, I'm just a dork. Like, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like all of that stuff, probably because I was working under my husband's license. My husband's license is what pays and feeds my family. So I'm never going to do anything that goes against my husband's license, which is huge, right? And so not everybody has that feeling, right? Everyone, if you have a medical director that you don't actually know and you've never met before, do you really care about their license? Probably not. Not as much as what I care about my husband's license.
All
That's true.
of our licenses are
Yeah.
at risk when we're not being compliant. Let's just be
Right.
real. I mean, I
Yeah.
think you just think everything's going to be fine, especially when you've worked in like big hospital systems. It's just like all done for you, and you've just been
Yeah.
doing things, and you don't think about compliance at all. And
Yeah.
so when you dive into your own world of medical
Yeah.
aesthetics, I mean, you have to think about these things, and people don't realize they do. They just want to carry on like they've been doing stuff before, but these bigger systems have put all these things into place. And so I mean, I think that, yes, just getting the word out there more and having this resource where people can go to find the information. Obviously, that was huge for us, is being able to just figure it all out.
Yeah, I mean, even as much as like our estheticians all became medical assistants. Why?
Mhm.
Because medical assistants could dermaplane and do all those
Mhm.
things. So that's a
Yep.
huge deal. And I don't think people in Georgia know that, right? So just
I
being able to
guarantee they
get
don't.
out, they don't, and just get out there and like tell people, hey, you need to have this updated, and hey, you don't want something to happen to you or your esthetician for that matter.
And the rules are so different from state to state. And I
Yes.
think that a lot of that is played into from these adverse events happening. And so it's like, if we can get people just being compliant and doing the things they're supposed to, then maybe there won't be these targets anymore, because we don't want nurses and NPs to not be able to inject in
No.
all kinds of different other states, right?
That's
And
right.
so
We're the only state. Okay, so like, Alabama, obviously only
Mhm.
MDs. Florida, your RNs have to be like grandfathered in, right? So you really don't have them. South Carolina, last year they took away and the RNs right to inject or whatever. So we're surrounded by these states, and I would love the RNs not to lose their ability to inject, because we have some really great RNs, not just at Altera, but like just in the state. And so if we can get out there and have enough people with regulation and be able to maybe get some legal help, I guess we just have to have enough
Mhm.
people all together to be
Yeah.
able to make some decisions, because they don't know. I mean, I think the only reason that the nursing board put anything out is because they're sick of getting complaints.
Yeah.
I mean, that is
Big
the only,
questions.
and questions. That's the
For sure.
only reason that they put that out. And when they get sick of complaints, they start to lay down a law because they don't want to hear about it anymore.
Right.
If
Right.
we don't have, people helping us lobby for medical spas, I think that's when you get into trouble.
Yeah.
We aren't back alley spas. That's not what we are. So we're
Right.
taking care of patients. We consider them our patients. We treat them
Yeah,
as
we
patients.
never say clients.
Nope.
We say people say clients all the time.
Nope.
Like, they
Well, they
are.
are your patients. I mean, they are.
But
They
yeah.
are, but we treat them like, medical patients. We ask, we do a medical history, we do all the stuff, right? So
Mhm.
I don't want medical spas to get anything taken away, basically.
Well, I love it. We'll have a ton more information on that in the days to come, because there's a lot of activity going. And also, like, we'll have to get you guys back on, because like, I know you've got a lot to say. Um I personally love the X in aesthetics. I mean, it kind of just rolls right off the tongue. It sounds like an X when you pronounce it. So I'm not it's fine. And we're also going to get you, you heard it here first. We're going to get you to speak at the medical spa show. I'm telling you, you guys are you're going to be there.
We're the only speaker in jeans and sparkle tennis shoes, I promise you.
And I'll be there. 'Cause it's
I don't think
it's on my birthday.
It's on her
too.
birthday. Yep.
Oh, well, even better. And I promise you won't be the only ones in sparkle tennis shoes. There'll be definitely at least one more. So that's all awesome.
Yes.
But we'll definitely have to have you back, because I think the route you're going, the kind of the scale that you're moving at, and what you're, how you're doing it, I think is I think to some people it will sound unique because they have this impression that most business owners and entrepreneurs are very sophisticated and they got all these, but I think how you're doing it is how most people do it, right? It's like you're
Yeah.
just kind of trying to figure it out as we go. And I think that's, congrats on everything.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. And yeah, maybe some nurses that, where they're in states where nurses can inject, maybe they need to hear a little bit more about how we work the dynamic of being, we have the nurse practitioner, PA in all of our offices.
Yeah.
So how do you work that dynamic of having an RN there and working with the MP to, see those
sure.
patients? So
Yeah, it's one of the things that people struggle with is like how do you accommodate that? How do you afford it, right? A whole bunch of stuff. So no, I appreciate that. But thank you so much, and we'll leave it at that. But we'll get you guys back on soon, okay?
all
Okay,
right,
thanks
sounds
so
good.
much.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate
All right,
it.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching the Medical Spa Insider podcast. Please make sure to subscribe to our channel for future videos and podcasts. For more information about the American Med Spa Association, please check our description below.